Hello, good evening everyone. So welcome to episode 35 of Teh Tarik with Walid, and today it is extremely special because I always say that, I know, but it is indeed special because we are going to have PAP representation on the show, and I'm always extremely glad and happy when I have somebody affiliated with the ruling party on, because it's not the easiest thing to get members of the PAP on, but it is what it is. So we will have Dr. Intan Azura Mokhtar on. She was, of course, a two-term PAP MP, Member of Parliament for Ang Mo Kio GRC, and she is an associate professor at SIT, the Singapore Institute of Technology, and she is an educationist by training, so it will hopefully be a fun and enlightening conversation. And she recently just released, well, this book has just recently been released. Well, it's on the market now, but the official book launch is tomorrow. So today is the launch before the launch. Okay, so it's edited by her and Professor Yaakob Ibrahim. It's entitled Social Context, Policies and Changes in Singapore Beyond the First 50 Years. And it's a thick book, so I myself have a chapter in it. But the authors here, I mean, the forward is by, hello, the forward is by, oh, Prof. Yaakob is here as well. Hello, Prof. Yaakob. So the forward is by Minister Lawrence Wong. And some of the authors also happen to be alumni of TTWW. You have Anthea, and you have Professor Walter Tessera, Mr. Zainal Sapari, Prof. Yaakob himself. They have chapters, but also others, MPs, Patrick Tay, Dennis Pua, you have former MP Inderjit Singh, and so on, and many others, Professor Elmi Nikmat, and others as well. So I do urge everyone to get this. I assure you it's worth it. It's an easy read as well. And it covers a range of, yes, alumni of TTWW Reggie. So it covers a wide range of issues. Okay, so without further ado, let me invite her on, and then we can have a discussion on the book and on some other issues as well. Hello, Dr. Intan, how are you? Oh, Waalaikumsalam. Okay. So I thought this is supposed to be a secular setting.
Okay, but then I should still extend my salam, right?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm okay. Yeah, so Waalaikumsalam. So that just means peace be upon you. So I just return the peace greeting. Thank you so much, Dr. Intan, for being here. So you are the fourth person from the PAP to be on. So Prof. Yaakob was the first, then MP Louis Ng. Yeah, so and Mr. Zainal Sapari as well. So I really appreciate it. It's not easy to get members of the PAP on for whatever reason, right? I'm sure they have other platforms which maybe they find friendlier or something. But anyway, I am very glad that you are here today. So we will discuss the book, and congratulations first and foremost. But before that, I just wanted to start the discussion by asking you, how are you? How's life after politics, especially your health? You know, I'm sure physically and mentally it must be a much better situation now, I presume.
Okay, Alhamdulillah, praises to Allah. I think very good actually. But before we go into that, I wanted to say hello to Prof. Yaakob. I saw that he joined in.
Yeah, he joined in.
Yeah. So Walid, life after retiring from politics, I must say I initially thought I would have a lot more free time. Well, I have more time now, but I wouldn't say that it's more free time because I think work in the university has also piled up. And for those listeners and viewers here, just to let you know that Prof. Yaakob is my boss right now in SIT, okay? So I do report to him too. Yeah.
Oh,
so that gives
directly.
an indication of how much work he gives me.
Yeah. So how about your
my health, alhamdulillah, I think so far so good. I'm in the clear. I think for those who don't know, one of the reasons I wanted to retire from politics was because I had cancer, but it was early stage, so thank goodness it was detected early, and I went through a minor surgery including 1 whole month of radiation therapy, medication, and all that. So it's been more than 5 years. I'm in remission, and I think so far so good. It hasn't come back, so I hope that it will never come back. So just have to take care of myself lah. Past 2 years has been a lot of working from home. And I must say that working from home, while it's very good because I have more time for the family, more time to be more productive and all that, but I'm also getting into shape as I work from home. If round is a shape, right? So a lot of sitting down and all that. So I'm really getting a lot rounder for those who probably noticed that too. But nonetheless, I still do try to stay in shape, better shape rather, other than round, by doing some exercises at home lah. But of course, there's a lot more moving about compared to when I was an MP, when there were a lot more block visits, community events, and so on. Yeah, but yes, Hida, round is a shape. But certainly, I'm glad to see that life has been very good to me. There are many opportunities. I've been very privileged to have had opportunities to work in politics on the ground, and now back to academia. Okay, so very long answer to your question. I'm sorry.
No. It's good. And it's really nice to hear about your health as well. Because I remember the first time Berita Harian ran an article about it. I think you were a bit reluctant to share more, right? I think it was, yeah, I can imagine as well. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm really glad you're healthy now and healthier now. So, yeah.
Because in the beginning, I thought it was a bit premature to share in the beginning because it's still too early. I'm still undergoing treatment and medication and all that. But once I reached almost the 5-year mark, I thought then, inshallah, at least things were better. Then I felt more comfortable to open up.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Intan, for sharing that with us. So this book, let's get to it. So what is the motivation behind it? What do you hope to get out of it? And what are the main things that the book puts for?
Okay. Thank you. First and foremost, Walid, you got the book before the book launch tomorrow. I'm supposed to present it to you tomorrow.
This one under table, I had to do a deal with the publishers.
So you got the book first, but good. It's good that you got it. Then I will pass you another copy tomorrow, inshallah, Prof. Yaakob and I. And thank you for accepting our invitation to attend the book launch in SIT. So this book, the motivation and the idea for this book started in November 2018. That's about almost 1.5 years, about 1 year, slightly over 1 year since I joined SIT. And I started teaching the module called Change Management, the first half of which is on social changes and social issues and changes. So the textbooks that I was referred to when I inherited the module were mostly general sociology textbooks. And I felt that the context wasn't quite focused on the Singapore context. It was very broad, just broad strokes, general concepts related to sociology. So I wanted a book that could really address and provide examples, specific examples, to the topics that were covered in that module. So I had the idea in November 2018, but I sat on it, didn't know how to start. I never wrote a book before in my life. But when Prof. Yaakob joined about a year later, I just approached him and said, Prof, I want to write a book. I want to put together a book. Will you help me and will you edit this book with me? So Prof was very kind and he said, yes, let's do it. So I sat down with him, we planned the book, and we decided that we want this book to give not a very pro-government approach to looking at issues, not just to blow our trumpets about how well we have done, how far we have come, but really to take a good look at what are some of the pertinent issues, no matter how challenging they are, even though they're not considered perfectly addressed, ideally addressed, but I think it's important for us to take a good look at all these issues. What are some of the concerns on the ground? What are some of the trade-offs when it comes to trying to address these issues? And that's why we wanted authors who could give a broad spectrum of views, and that's why you were also included, Walid.
Yes, and I'm really honored.
No, we're really grateful. I'm really grateful that you accepted the invite to contribute a chapter in this. So people like Inderjit, yourself, Zainal, Patrick, these are individuals that I know who would take a very, how do I say, a balanced approach, a really good look at the issues that we have at hand, not just always trying to wax lyrical about the things that we've done, how well we've done, but really they are able to address some of the so-called contentious issues. Because beyond the first 50 years, that's why that's the title of the
Right.
book. First 50 years, I think, yes, we've done well, but the next 50 years, looking at how our demographics have changed, how aspirations have changed, how our generation has become a lot more well-read, more well-informed, more global in their outlook. They want things to be done and to be addressed differently, not the way that it was done maybe in the first generation, by the first generation of leaders. And I think that's important for every one of us to be able to provide our take, our views to it, and find that collective voice. Not all views can be acceded to. I think we know that for a fact. But at least if all the voices are heard and considered, then of course we know that ultimately the decisions that are made will have to be those where we have considered all those different options and voices and views. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really the intent of this book.
I love that line. Not all voices can be accepted, but all voices need to be considered. Yeah, that's a really nice line, right? So, and I think you and Prof. Yaakob are in prime position to write such a book, right? Because you guys were from the establishment as well, so nobody can accuse you guys of trying to disrupt the system or anything, right? So, So you mentioned the challenges. So, throughout the course of editing the book and writing the chapters as well, so what would be the biggest challenges you think in the next few years?
In the next few years or the next 50 years?
Yeah, whatever, 50 years, 10 years, or yeah.
I think we have quite a lot of our policies that have worked well in the past, up to this point even. But looking ahead, we realize and we must recognize there's a lot more diversity. And there's a lot more, I wouldn't say demand, but the want, the desire among our population for greater diversity in terms of voices, in terms of views, in terms of even some of the strategies that the way that we've been doing things. Why not try things that are a little bit different? Because what worked one or two generations back may not necessarily work well now or in the future. Like I said, our demographics have changed, aspirations have changed, our people are becoming a lot more well-informed, well-educated, they travel a lot more, they are more global in their outlook. So we need to consider, these are all the considerations we need to take in and look at how some of the solutions that we've had or that we have in place, whether they need to be reviewed, whether they need to be enhanced further and so on. Some of the challenges that still exist, I would say, okay, let's just focus on education because I'm very familiar with that sector.
Right. Yeah.
We have done well in the sense that, we do very well in tests, whether it's PISA and so on. But is that the way forward? For example, the PSLE, I've spoken about this before in Parliament. I don't think it's the best way for us to test our 12-year-olds at that age and in a national level exam. And I wrote about that in this book in my chapter 2.5, Education as a Social Leveler, Opportunities and Outcomes. Sometimes as a 12-year-old, when you're faced with different family circumstances, challenges in the family, and it may impact you, but you have to sit for this one exam over a few days, and then that will sort of decide your path ahead in secondary school or what subjects you can take later on. So while academic streaming has been abolished, we are looking at a lot more, different levels, differentiation. We started with academic banding, and then now we look at doing away with streaming, but we allow each student to take subjects at different levels according to their abilities. I was all for that. I was advocating for that. But I think now it's also time to look at the next sacred cow, which is the PSLE.
Wow.
Is there
So you would say do away with it? That's what you would say?
But of course, that was the question that I asked. Of course, doing away with it sounds really good because as a 12-year-old, there are many other things that we need to look at for the child. How the child has progressed from primary 1 to primary 6, for example, what are some other aspects of the child that the child is progressing in, not just the academic spectre, not just the academic part of it, but in terms of character building, in terms of sports, in terms of music, other interests as well. I think we need to look at a child more holistically. But then we also come to the question, what would be a good enough alternative to the PSLE? I think there's no easy answer to it. Yeah. So those are the questions that I posed in the book. We won. I think it's good to do away with the PSLE, but what is the next best alternative that we can have? I think that's something that we need to continue to engage one another and discuss, have those conversations, and probably explore. Can we pilot it in one school first, where we can have a through train, primary 1 to 6 all the way to secondary 4, and see what can be done, whether it works.
Right. Thank you. The conversation is going so well, so I would hate to disagree with you, but I
Please don't do
I
that.
agree. I agree with you, but if I could just push you a little bit, right? So I do think at 12 years old, it's crazy, right, that we are putting so much pressure. I mean, you and I both know, right? We both know parents who take the year off, right, to prepare for PSLE. They take no pay leave and all. So it's just so much pressure on us at such an early age. And then if you go upstream, even worse, right? Like at 18, government scholarships at 18, like at 18, your frontal lobe is not fully developed yet, right? So it's crazy that your future trajectory is determined at 18 as well. I mean, those are other sacred cows, I suppose. But if you were to take, if somebody, and I'm a bit sympathetic to this view as well, right? So we want to make things less stressful for students, right? But we don't want to take stress completely out of the system, right? Because a little bit of pressure is good for growth,
It's
right?
actually
So
good, yeah.
so if I could share, I have a huge problem with this when I went to my son's kindergarten sports day, right? And a couple of years ago, and everybody got a gold medal, and I got a huge problem with that, right? It's we are creating this, everybody's a winner. You don't need to try hard in order to get that gold medal. Even if you fail, you're still going to be rewarded. So I had a problem with that, and when during the PTM I mentioned it to the teachers, where they said, they wanted to encourage participation. I said, yeah, but you can give gold, silver, bronze still, right? Everybody gets a medal, but different color or something. So I mean, where is the line then between, because I see that is a problem, but in correcting for the problem, we can go, the pendulum can swing the other way, and then suddenly you remove it. So where is that line that the government should tread? Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I'm glad you brought up that example, Walid. It's a very good example. I think sometimes when in our bid to try to encourage everyone to be as inclusive as possible, we tend to overcompensate. And we say that, everybody gets a goal. And then, but to me, that becomes some form of tokenism as well.
Right.
Everybody just gets something, which also defeats the purpose of what life is really about, because life is a competition.
Right.
But we do not also want to push everyone to the extent of thinking and accepting that it's a competition with everyone, every time, all the time. No, I think competition is good because, like what you say, a little bit of stress makes us better as individuals. We recognize what our strengths are, where are the areas that we can focus and improve and do even better. So I think what we do not want is to go, like what you say, the extremes of the pendulum, make it overly competitive, but at the same time overcompensate and make it like a form of tokenism entirely. So we want our students and our young people especially to be rewarded for their effort. And I think like what you mentioned, that example, having gold, silver, and bronze is perfectly fine. But what's important is how we message it. What is the message we're trying to convey to our young people? Does it mean that only getting a goal is important or is worthy of something? No. If you didn't, let's say the year before you had no medal, this year you got a bronze, you have improved. There's progress. You're making progress. You should not be pitting yourself against somebody else who got a silver last year and now getting a gold and say, oh, you're not as good as that person who got a gold. No, you're making progress. I think it's always important to look at where we were, where we are now, how far we have moved. And it's always important for parents in particular to encourage their children, saying that, I'm very proud of what you've done. But at the same time, I know that you can do even better. These are your strengths. These are the areas that you probably need to work on, but let's do it together. See how I can encourage you, how we can improve over time. I think it's worse when parents start to compare. You see, like you got like this, and then that other child got this
Right.
instead. Why can't you be as good as that person? I think that really dampens the spirit of the child.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I know that also theoretically, but it's not that easy to implement in real life, right? There's always a tendency like you just want to compare with
Of
another person, the
course.
classmate, or yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of it. Parents, because we were also brought up in that environment, right? So and therefore we think that that is the way to go subconsciously or consciously, whatever it is. But yeah, I think even parents like myself, we need to do a lot of unlearning as well. So
Yes.
yeah,
So
so
it's not
you
just the
meant
government.
yeah.
Sorry, Walid.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
just the
absolutely. I
government
agree. Yeah,
putting
yeah,
in
yeah.
place certain policies, but we as parents, what is the message we're trying to convey to our
Right,
children and our young people? Yeah, it works both
right,
ways. Let's see.
right. Okay, thank you. And your the title of your chapter was education as a social leveler, right? And you already talked about. Let's think about the sacred cows, right? Then should we go for the ultimate sacred cow when it comes to education and inequality, which is meritocracy? Is that is that the root of it? Because tuition, it's $1 billion industry, right? So, and there is no meritocracy to that already, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of income differences that make up. And then once we start believing in meritocracy as the ultimate, well, as the be all and all, then we start thinking that, oh, I am here because of my own effort, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, not thinking about the amounts of money that our parents spend on us on tuition and all, and other people may not have had
Mm.
access to those resources. So is it time to rethink that at least, or do away with that? What do you think?
I think we can't quite run away from looking at merit. I think we can't quite run away from that. In many aspects of our lives, whether it's in school, in our workplaces, even you and I know every year we have to go through appraisal, right, Walid? It's still
Yeah,
all
and we are judged
based
on a
on,
curve also, right?
yeah, it's always based on merit. But I think what's important is that we need to broaden our definition of what is meritorious, what is considered merit. It's not just specific benchmarks, it's not just grades that you get, certain yardsticks that we are so used to. But again, looking at how we can evaluate a person a lot more holistically. And so even for our children, it's not just the academic attainment alone, that means how they perform in exams or tests, but looking at their achievement overall as well. How have they shown themselves to be a good friend or a good leader to their classmates? How have they
Mm,
shown care and concern towards members of the community, those less privileged? How have they honed their leadership skills and so on? So we have to look at things a little bit more broadly, like holistically. It's and I guess I can understand also the difficulty, because when you want and you desire to look at things a lot more holistically, it's also a lot more messy, because
yeah,
there are no very well defined yardsticks and benchmarks that you look at. There's a
right,
lot more subjectivity, not just objectiveness of looking at
right,
specific benchmarks or yardsticks. But that's something that we have to get used to, and we have to do. I think we cannot run away from that, because that is something that our young people, and I think even parents like yourself and I, we want, because we want our students to not just fit into very nice, neat little boxes, and then they are defined by that. No, because
right,
we have so many abilities, so many strengths, so many capacities and potential for us to hone. As an individual, it's not just about neat little boxes that we can fit everyone into. That's also the very reason why I was so against academic streaming, because I've taught students in normal technical, and I know that all they wanted is really a chance. But that Pygmalion effect, the fact that they think that they are fit into this box or that particular stream, that's all they're capable of.
right.
But if you give them a chance, you help them to progress, to look for small successes at first, then they find that they can do it on their own. They just need a little bit of hand holding in the beginning.
Right.
So I'm glad that is something that MOE is working towards, abolishing the academic stream and working towards broader bands. But of course, there are still other sacred cows, like what you pointed out, not just based on the merit system and meritocracy. Um, One example that I've been speaking about, which we have not quite instituted any changes to it, is the SAP schools, for example, right? People have brought about the really, is it still something that's really relevant in this day and age? The SAP schools, special assistance plan schools, where mostly you have to take a mother tongue that's Chinese to be able to go into SAP schools. I have nothing against SAP school. I think it's good if you want to encourage the understanding and appreciation of the Chinese culture and language. But there's always that tendency that SAP schools tend to be a little bit more parochial, in the sense that the students that they admit would probably be just along specific racial lines or ethnicities. But if you can open up SAP schools so that students who enroll need not just be those students who have learned the Chinese language, for example, but from different mother tongues. But so long as academically and based on other benchmarks, they can make the cutoff for the SAP schools, they can enroll in, learn the Chinese language, whether it's of course, maybe they can't take it at higher mother tongue, but at least they can take it as conversational Mandarin,
Right.
or as a third language or special language. I think that helps to improve the diversity of the school.
Right.
I think that's also something that I've discussed in this book, and something I've spoken up in Parliament before. So these are the hard questions that we need to ask and discuss and see, could there be other ways of doing it, of doing things that we have already done, but different approaches as we progress, as we mature as a society.
Right. Well, Dr. Intan, today all gloves off. Suddenly, SAP schools and.
Hello, Walid. I spoke about this in Parliament too.
I
You
know,
can
I
check
know,
the
I know,
Hansard.
I know, I did. So I think one of the things, I think you were not covered as much as you should have been. I did follow your speeches, and I always found that you were always very measured and very thoughtful in what you said. Unfortunately, it wasn't as covered as I thought you should have. Got this, people like the more bombastic ones, yeah, bombastic speeches. But I definitely agree with you. In fact, I had this conversation with somebody important. I will not name that person, but that person was from a SEP school and maybe 50 years old now. And I asked that person, how many non-Chinese friends that you have in secondary school, and when you're in JC 17, 18, and that person says zero. No, zero. And those are the formative years, like when you are powerful already, when you have a position, and you have minority friends, those are not really your friends, right? Those are people who are around you because of your position or whatever it is. But it's during in your formative years, those are actually very important, so critical. So like you, I am also not against SEP schools, and I don't think politically it's feasible to remove SEP schools now. Yeah, but I think how can we make it more diverse, right? So there's a question here by Amir Mirza. Any thoughts on degree expiry dates?
When I first heard it on the news, I almost fell out my chair. Okay. I think the intention was good, but maybe the delivery didn't quite achieve the actual
You've heard,
intent.
Dr. Intan, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Hey, don't say that loud, Walid.
No, it's a saying. No, I'm not. I'm saying it's just a saying.
Yeah, I think the intention is good in the sense that even after we graduate, at least even with a first degree, it's important to continuously upskill, right? Find new ways in which we can have certifications, short courses that will make us really prepared for the industry that we're in. Because the reality is that it is true, the industries that we're joining, they are very dynamic. They're changing very, very quickly. Just take the tech sector, for example. Every other week, you'll probably get some new development, a new innovation, some disruption coming about. And to actually finish a university degree in 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years, sometimes we really wonder whether our students are really well prepared to join the industry and then hit the ground running, to be able to keep up with what the disruptions are, what the new innovations are. So I think, like I said, the intent is good. it's good to continuously upskill, reskill, deep skill, cross skill, whatever skill you can call it, like what Patrick Tay always says. I think to put an expiry date, I think no lah. I don't think we want an expiry date because the fact that you spend 3-4 years of your life learning for the degree is not just about the content of the degree alone that you learn, but really the skills that you develop over those 3-4 years. The fact that you're able to work in teams, work independently, the fact that you hone your written communication skills, your oral communication skills, you exercise leadership skills, you are able to collaborate. I think those are other skills that you develop as well. So to say that after 5 years, those skills become obsolete and then there's an expiry, I think that's not quite right lah. So it's just a delivery of the intention.
Right. So I think, I mean, I'm okay with people floating, as he called it, a radical idea, right? Because even sometimes I think if you float a terrible idea also, it can be fodder for discussion. And evidently it was. So my problem wasn't whether it was a good or bad idea. My problem with it was it seemed to me, and I do agree, it came from a good place. It seemed like such an elitist idea, right? Because that would perpetuate the inequality even more, because it's the lower income that cannot afford that kind of, taking time away from work and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, so one issue that I really wanted to get your thoughts on, because I think you're the perfect person for this, since you're an educationist and you are familiar with the research on this. And do you think we have gone overboard with the COVID restrictions, specifically on education, with masking children especially? I worry that we are raising a generation that has missed camps, for instance, cannot touch their friends in school, cannot read facial expressions because they don't even know how their friends look like. So do you think we have gone overboard in that particular sense? Not in the general sense, just in the particular sense of schools.
Okay. I think that is a valid concern. I think both as a parent and also yourself, you are also an educator, Walid, so the concern is very valid. But at the same time, you also need to consider in terms of public health and safety, particularly when our young children were not yet vaccinated. I think there was also the worry that, do we want to take the risk and say mask off is okay in school, but yet at the same time, we're not too sure what the outcomes would be in terms of infection rates and in extent of the symptoms and the extent of the symptoms of the infection or the severity of the infections. So it's, I guess, for our government, more often than not, they will always err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
So they are a lot more cautious about it. So they decided, okay, let's continue to mask up. So it's been 2 years. It's a long time, and you're right. These are very important formative years for our children, especially when it's about learning when you're young. It's not so much about the content of your syllabus and curriculum. It's really about interactions, social interactions, understanding cues, facial cues, verbal cues, and so on. So, being masked up is not easy for our children, but I hope that we have passed the worst. We are already opening up. Even at the university level, we can have mask off as long as you maintain a certain distance. But if you want to sit close together, huddle as a group, you can, so long as you put your mask on. So there's an option, a lot more flexibility. So I hope that going forward, especially with our vaccination rates ramping up, and we are doing quite well in it, we can get as much as back to normal as far as possible. I think, but then again, of course, 2 years that have passed is not something that we can get back. But I think we hope that henceforth we can really ramp up our interactions and learning among our young ones.
Yeah, I feel that there hasn't been enough discussion on it because we've been so obsessed, like typically Singapore, right? We are obsessed about the numbers, right? The number of cases, the number, So, and we have not had a proper public discussion on this, So, and also, when you mentioned the vaccination, but we are now 90+% vaccinated already. I mean, not
95%
children.
thereabouts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So general public, right? Uh, so I really think that we are being so conservative. And okay, wider society, I'm fine. You know, it's something, an inconvenience I think a lot of us can tolerate. But I really worry about this, you know, the children at those very formative years and how long more. So yeah, so I mean, and I feel sad also, you know, like my son is in primary one this year, like only one parent could go, you know, those sorts of things. And yeah, you know, and
But they
PTM,
should be
everything's
opening up soon,
online.
right?
Yeah.
They
Hopefully,
should be open up
hopefully.
soon.
Yeah,
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 they
yeah.
should be.
So yeah, so hopefully we'll have movements, positive movements, especially with regard to the mask. But anyway, so it seems like it's a long while away still. But yeah. Okay, civil society, because the first segment was on civil society, the first section of your book, right?
Yes, and
So what
that's
is
where
the
you contributed a
yeah,
chapter
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. That's I had a chapter there too. And incidentally, next week I will be having Constant Singham on. Yeah, she's
Okay.
the veteran civil society activist, right? And it's also sad, right, that her book launch was cancelled by the Arts House, and for whatever reason, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, it's cancelled. She had to move it elsewhere. So, what is the state of affairs of civil society now? You think what are the lacuna, or what is the lacuna, and where can we move ahead, or how can we move ahead? Sorry.
I must say, I must qualify that I'm not an expert in the civil society scene or sector. Anthea probably will be a better person to speak about this, Anthea Ong. But I would say that what we have now, compared to the time when probably you and I were in our teens or in our early 20s, 20, 30 years back, it's quite different. I think there's a lot more breadth, a lot more birth for civil societies to be a lot more active, to get their voices heard, to even carry out studies, for issues that they advocate for. And now, especially with social media, there are many more avenues and platforms in which they can share their findings and their views. So I think it's good because more than anything, it's always good for any individual and any society that's maturing and progressing to get information from many different sources. Not just from specific sources, or worse still, sources that are prescribed for us. Because that's something that I also try to instill in my students. These are all the different sources that you have. Consider this view, consider this perspective. At the end of the day, you have to make that judgment. You have to decide. You have to make that informed choice based on the information that you've gathered. I'm not here to tell you what's the one perspective you should only look at, or what's really the right way to do this. There are many different factors to consider, many different ways to look at it, but you have to decide. But what I'm here to do is to share with you the different views, the different perspectives. So I think we're in a good place. We're maturing as a society. We're giving a lot more space and birth and flexibility for the different and sometimes to some extent divergent views to emerge. And I think that's good. That's good. Yeah.
That's a very positive view of civil society.
Am I supposed to give an otherwise?
No, because I don't know, I feel like the trajectory is not linear, right? Sometimes like you feel, oh, we are moving ahead, and sometimes it feels like, oh, we are not really, like when Constance her book launch was that, I felt, my God, like this is she, I don't know, what is she a threat? Like at 86 years old, like after everything that she's done and she's proven, right? Is she still an unknown quantity, or what is it that she says that she hasn't said before, or is so controversial that it had to be? And I'm sure it wasn't like the government asking Arts House to cancel or anything, right? But we all know how it works in. There's always some overzealous administrator who
Always
is overly cautious.
erring on the side of caution.
Yeah, exactly.
Really,
Yeah.
I'm really not privy. I'm really not privy to what transpired or what were the causes of the cancellation. But I would say that it's good for young people to have different views, right? Different viewpoints, different perspectives. So in this day and age, there's nothing to stop you from really having a launch of whatever that you've written. If you can't have a book launch in the arts house, you can always launch your writings and your thoughts and your memoirs on different platforms. And there are ways in which society can have that reach, be able to access what you have to share. So I think I always like to, maybe it's an optimist in me. I don't want to take it so negatively, but I think there are ways in which Ms. Constance Singham can also reach out to the general public. There are many different platforms which I'm sure people are also keen and interested to hear what the views are.
Yeah. I think the arts house just made her sell more books because yeah, really, right. I
Yeah,
mean, that's how it works,
because
right?
there's
When
always a silver
you try.
lining, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you think there should be red lines for civil society?
Oh, that's a tough question. Um, I think there must be that flexibility, that birth for civil societies to exist, for advocacy groups to want to advocate for certain issues that they feel passionately about. Red lines, I guess, on the part of the government, there's always the worry or the concern whether there are certain lines or sensitive areas where we shouldn't cross. And I know that for the government, particularly when it comes to race and religion, they're very, very careful about it. Yeah, because there are always sensitivities involved. But so I wouldn't categorize them as just red lines alone, but I think there are areas which are sensitive, which we probably need to have deeper conversations in. The only it's not so easy, especially in this day and age. Probably it worked 50 years ago, but now it's not so easy to just say this is the line that you can cross and that's it.
Right.
People will always question why, and that's why
Right.
those conversations are important. Have that conversations where you have representations of different views, even divergent views, so that even if you can't move that line, but people understand why that line exists, rather than just saying this is a line you can't cross and that's it. I think you need to have that conversation so that the understanding is there, the awareness, and then you see my view, I see your view. Okay, we can agree to disagree, but at least we understand why we are here and how we can move forward. I think that's
Right.
important.
Right. So your views really align with this person that I'm gonna quote. That person said, "The need to be careful must not end up silencing all discussion of religious topics by making it so that the definitions of illegal behavior are so ambiguous that no one can be sure what might be judged hateful. Ironically, this might end up deterring meaningful interfaith efforts between groups as people steer away from any activity or topic for fear of causing unintended offense." Do you know who said that, Dr. Intan?
I said that, Walid. I think you're going to make me almost fall off my chair. Okay, pray tell.
So, so Gen Z of you. So it's Prof. Yaakob who said that in Parliament. One of
Oh,
his,
okay.
yeah, he said that in
Okay.
2019. So one of his final speeches. So,
Okay.
and I think is your views and Prof. Yaakob's are those the minority you think within the party or?
I'm not sure. Maybe because I've been working with him for the past 2 years, so it's like somehow we become aligned.
But I do really hope that the government takes what you're saying seriously because you can see, right, even in the past 5 years, I've never mind past 5 years, past 2 years, the discussions I've seen on Instagram on race, I never imagined I would have seen that. Like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have seen that. Like in the past 2 years, right? So in spite of the red line still being there, like people are still gonna push it, right? So and it will come to a point where, hey, why do these red line exist? Right? Red lines exist, and if there is no understanding on the government's part, then it may backfire as well. So I definitely agree, and I appreciate your point of view. So I hope the government takes what you say seriously as well, and what Prof. Yaakob, which I'm glad he said it in Parliament as well, so it's on record. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then again,
So
siapa
yeah.
lah kita?
Hey, I mean, you guys are members of. of the ruling
But
party, and he was a
I did,
minister
I'm,
also.
he was Prof. Yaakob, yes, but for me, I retired already, so I don't think I will be heard.
Right. Well, hopefully. Well, I mean, you got Minister Lawrence Wong to write the forward, so I'm sure he's read the book, or the important parts. Hopefully. Yeah.
He's
Okay.
not read the whole book. So,
Okay. Okay. So, final question. Let's end on a light-hearted note, right? So, okay, maybe second last question. Okay. So, you are
okay.
working on another project, right? So, another book. So, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. Actually, it's a project that I worked on for the past 3 years, already completed. So, official completion
Oh,
date is end of this month. So, this
oh.
was my project. I don't know whether you can see.
Oh, so the book is going to be released
This
in,
one,
so it's
no, this
Kampung
one is,
Lorong Buangkok.
yes, Kampung Lorong Bangkok. That is my SIT Ignition Grant project. So, I got a grant from the university to do this project, which is a documentation of the oral history and personal narratives of the residents of the kampong. Because this kampong is going to be, it's going to make way as gentrification takes over. As urban redevelopment under the URA master plan, this kampong will be replaced by two schools, a primary school, a secondary school, as well as a 3-lane bi-directional highway and a public park. So this kampong, which is the last kampong on mainland Singapore, will disappear. So it's really a matter of when and not if.
Oh, really? You think so?
Yeah.
It's a matter of when and not if. Yeah.
Yes, because it's already there on the URA master plan. You don't see the kampong there.
Yeah.
And you know that we have the Land Acquisitions Act, right? Which means that the
Yeah.
government can
Right.
acquire even a privately held piece of land. So it's I got to know this kampung because of my work in Jalan Kayu in Ang Mo Kio GRC. This was under Jalan Kayu division.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It is. Yeah. So I think it's a unique place because it's really the last kampung on mainland Singapore. The only other kampung we have left in Singapore is on Pulau Ubin,
Yeah.
right? So Pulau Ubin is very likely going to stay on because it's offshore. Anything on the mainland is considered prime land. So
Right.
it's going to make way for urban redevelopment. But I think it's a very unique place because even though it's owned by a Chinese lady, Ms. Seng Wei Hong, more than half of the residents are Malays, Muslims.
Yeah.
And then there's a surau, there's a small
Yeah, she
mosque.
maintains the mosque, right? The
Yes,
surau.
that's
Yeah.
right, the
I
surau,
found that
surau of
fascinating. I just
Firdaus.
recently found out as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that this is really like a very unique microcosm of Singapore society. The fact that it's multiracial, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, but they coexist so well since 1956 when it was first established, even before our independence. And to this day, even though Ms. Sung owns that piece of land, she rents out the different plots of land to the families. They built their own wooden houses, zinc houses, and whatnot. But you won't believe it, Walid. The rental rates are really very low, probably the lowest in Singapore. The most expensive land rental per month is $30. The cheapest is about $6.50 per month.
Wow.
So yeah, and she doesn't want to increase the rates because why? There's a certain relationship that she's built with her residents, with her neighbors. So it's really about wanting to take care, maintain that good relationship. So it's okay. I'm not trying to profit off you, but let's just live in harmony. So it's quite unique. So what my team and I did was we thought we should document the stories of the people in the kampong, and we know that there are a lot of residents coming, or rather people, general public going to kampong because they're curious. So Miss Sung was sharing with me that sometimes she feels she's an animal in a zoo or an
Yeah.
exhibit
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people walk in and out, peer into the
Exactly,
homes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I went there last week actually. So on
Did you
Sunday,
ask
and
Miss Sung for permission?
no, so but
You love him,
I
right?
was so conscious of what you said, because I really didn't want to go in and say hello to everybody, because I am sure they are irritated by it, right? As in, oh my God, they are not animals in zoos, right? So yeah, I just went in, yeah, and then went out. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what we did as part of this project, other than this coffee table book, is to capture the entire kampong in the form of a virtual reality tour. So you can actually go visit the entire kampong without physically being there in the kampong. So it's a
Wow.
VR tour. And you can even go into a few of the houses like Miss Seng's house, Madam Fatima's house, Madam Maima's house through the VR tour. And then
Wow.
interspersed within the VR tour will be video clips of the interviews I did with them, as well as some fun facts about the kampung. So we hope that in future, when the kampung is no longer around, people can still take this tour and recall and reminisce what the kampung is like. So part of the project grant that we had was to purchase the, Oculus Go goggles,
Yeah,
so that you can have a more immersive experience as you take
Right,
the virtual reality tour. But it's also
right.
available as a web-based VR tour, which people can take. I'm
So this
compiling
will
all
be
that into
ready.
one website. By
This will
April,
be ready.
everything will be
Oh,
ready
wow.
in on the website in SIT. Yeah,
Okay.
of course, it's not
Yeah.
reality. I understand that, Marian. We wish that we can retain, but the other reality also is that the residents in the kampung are aging. Those who are left are really the older residents. The young ones have actually all moved out. So even the older residents left in the kampung lamented that, oh, sekarang cuma tinggal orang yang tua-tua. Those who are left now are only the older ones, the elderly ones. The young people only come in once in a while. So we know that the reality is that once this elderly residents of the kampung have passed on, then what happens? I think the last thing you want is to have the kampung, which is just an empty shell of what it used to be. Yeah. So we have to find a way in which we can retain the memories, the spirit and essence of the kampung, without leaving it just as an empty shell. If there's a way in which it can be incorporated into a community space, so that we can still ensure that the spirit and the essence of the kampung can still be lived and experienced by younger Singaporeans, I think that will be good. Otherwise, we can be part of the schools that was planned. Even in schools, we should not just be about classroom walls, right? Learning exists everywhere. It's not just within the four walls of the classroom. Learning can also exist if that kampung can be part of the school. The students can really, carry out their daily activities, their social interactions within the kampung and understand, this is what a kampung is like. This is what a kampung spirit is all about. I don't know. These are ideas
Right.
which we can explore.
No, I think it's such a good project. Thank you so much, and I will help publicize it as well. I'm
But
sure
this
you
one
will.
is
You,
not.
you have better.
This one not for
It's
sale.
not.
This one is just based on my project grant I print. So I can give you one copy when I see you tomorrow.
Okay,
Without
okay.
using.
Thank you.
But
And I mean
I'll
the
be
online
donating
one.
a few copies to NLB lah, so that at
Right,
least the
right.
public can
So,
still have access
so,
to it.
so Haikal said, I'm sure there are young families who are eager to be part of this kampung, especially at $30 a month. And DeLorean says she's happy to be the penghulu of the kampung. But I guess the broader point here, right? It's a bit frustrating sometimes that the iconic places of Singapore are always like destroyed, and it's almost as if there's no soul to this
Yeah.
country. It's always made. I mean, it's almost as if consumerism, materialism is number one, and everything else. There's no room for emotion. There's no room for spirituality. Because there's a connection people have with these places as well. So it's just a bit frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I mean it's true. I agree because that emotions, spirituality is very much a part of our human psyche. We all need it. Because
yeah,
we need
right,
it for
right.
our own well-being and so on.
Yeah,
But I think there are ways in which we can have those, maybe not always in the physical sense, because space is a premium,
right,
land is a premium in Singapore, but there are ways in which we can ensure that it exists, but we just have to explore what are the possibilities.
right. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Intan. Final question. So this one is really lighthearted. Okay. So there are a few reasons why I started this series, right? One is really to discuss important issues in a long form format, right? Not the kind of 2-minute soundbite format, which for me is not helpful. That one is to score points, so that's the first one, like to really discuss ideas. And the other is really, it's about showing how people from different parties, right, ultimately we all have one goal, right, which is the betterment of society, the betterment of this country. And just to put it out there, so in that spirit, right, I always ask this to politicians, right, who is your favorite person from the other party, from the opposition. Who is your favorite? So if the opposition is here, I'll ask them. I always ask them who's the favorite PAP. So who's your favorite? Uh,
My favorite from the opposition. Okay, my
yeah,
favorite politician, not from the PAP.
yeah.
I would have to say Pritam Singh.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to say Mr.
Because.
Pritam Singh, because I find that he's very confident in what he has to deliver. He's articulate, he's eloquent, um, and and I think as a leader, he shows that he's, especially as a leader of the opposition, he shows that he's in touch, not just with the ground, and not just that he understands the pulse of Singaporeans, but even his own team members. The unfortunate case of Raisa Khan, when it happened, I think more than anything, Pritam wanted to give her some time and space to sort out her issues, but somehow things turn around, and instead of focusing on the person who lied in Parliament, I think it just blew up. But I think if I have to choose one, I would say Pritam.
Okay. Thank you so much. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed today's conversation, and thank you for everything that you've done and all the contributions in Parliament and outside Parliament. And I really look forward to your future projects, the Kampung Bangkok project and others as
Yes.
well. Yeah. And is there anything
Inshallah,
else? Yeah?
yeah, inshallah, we're
Yeah.
having a planned series of 5 community exhibitions on the project. The first one will be at Chi Yuan Community Center in Ang Mo Kio GRC. That will be in April, so do look out for it. That will be open to public. Yeah. So just to
Okay.
showcase the project deliverables.
Okay, so I will help publicize in whatever small platform, on whatever
Thank
small
you.
platform I have.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Dr.
Thank you
Intan,
for the
as in it was a
opportunity,
pleasure.
Walid.
No, thank you, and
Likewise.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Inshallah,
Okay,
I'll see you tomorrow. I will
okay.
pass you the
Good night.
books.
Yes,
Good
thank
night.
you. Good night,
Thank you,
everybody. Bye
everyone.
bye.
Thank you, those who are here.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.